Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will begin in a few moments.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. I believe we will go ahead and get started. We really appreciate all of you being here. I'm Stephen Pruitt. I'm president of the Southern Regional Education Board, or SREB, as we like to say affectionately. And we don't like to say that many words at one time if we can help it. We like to use letters around SREB. Um, just really want to take a moment and thank all of you for joining us. We are very excited to be able to provide this webinar, College Affordability in the South, Insights from the 2025 SREB College Affordability Profiles. We're going to be diving into some really interesting data today, taking a look at the trends that are really shaping college affordability around the region. Our goal is to try to provide as much clarity, actionable insights that can help you understand where we are as a region. And let's be clear, we know that affordability is an extremely complex issue. Regardless of how simplified people try to make it, there are a lot of factors that go into telling that whole story. But the data we're going to share hopefully will illuminate the progress our states have made, the challenges that we face, and the opportunities that lie ahead. So, with all that said, let me take a quick drink of water and we will get started. So, before we get into the data, I think it's always important for you to know who is actually conducting this webinar. SREB is kind of an interesting organization. It's a wonderful place. I will be president of SREB 7 years in July. We are what's called an interstate compact. For those of you that don't know what that is, it means that we exist in the law in all 16 of our states, which means that we are not exactly, sorry, allergies. I'm in the South. My allergies are just killing me today. But an interstate compact is a little different because while we, for tax purposes, are a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, we were created in 1948 to support the southern region, which extends from Delaware down to Florida, over to Texas, and back up through Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kentucky. We are the biggest and oldest, and we were really developed back then to support the South after we were sort of declared to be the biggest economic liability in the country. So our work is really to provide support for our states pre-K to gray, as I like to say. We work everything in K-12, post-secondary, and the workforce. Well, how do we do that? There's three key things that we are really good at. We analyze and publish information. We engage and convene. We bring people together around really important issues, and then we support action. Um, and I believe that's one of the big differences about SREB is a lot of people are able to publish. A lot of people are able to convene. We're able to go that next step because of our status as an interstate compact and actually support action all the way down to the classroom level, but including policy makers. So it provides a very interesting place to work, a very exciting place to work, and we're very proud of it. So, like I said, we tackle a whole range of issues. We actually have a commission on AI and education going right now. I would encourage you to go to our website and take a look at the work there. In fact, shortly we're going to be releasing the pillars of use of AI in the classroom. We also have released a set of policy recommendations. And eventually, we're going to be releasing criteria that school districts and others can use in the selection of AI programs. We're very proud of the fact that we've recently launched the Crisis Recovery Support Network. This is a coordinated effort around the entire 16 states where we're going to be training 40 counselors per state to be prepared to go in and provide stabilization and psychological first aid in the event of a natural disaster or a mass tragedy. We do other work. One of our long-standing programs that we're very proud of is the Doctoral Scholars Program that supports students as they try to advance toward the professoriate to get more people into academia. And of course, one of the long-standing staples of SREB is the SREB Fact Book on Higher Education. And we're also working on new higher ed data dashboards. These things provide our states and our public really with incredible opportunities to download all sorts of data. It's sort of a one-stop shop. You can actually go there and see everything that comes from whether it's iPads or even the census. So we encourage all of you, if you're not familiar with that, to get to know us and to go and play around on our website just a little bit. So let's talk a minute about why we're doing this work. We have had a really staunch commitment to college affordability over the years. We have been really doing this for a little over a decade. Well, actually, we've been doing the affordability reports a little bit longer. But in 2014, we did a commission on college affordability in the South. Now, just so you understand what a commission is, I mentioned it with AI earlier. This is not where we bring six people together and we sit in a room and we create things. It is one of the few places I believe you can find a group of people that, first of all, represents all 16 of our states, where you go into the room and you see sitting in that room, sitting legislators, education leaders, such as higher ed executives, chancellors, presidents of university provosts, and policy experts and instructors, and even business members that come together to talk about a common issue. So in 2014, we had a commission on college affordability. And since then, we've really produced a series of data-driven publications that do more than just provide data. We want to really dig into what that data is. I'm a science guy, so it's really important for me because data are just numbers. Evidence, however, is data with reasoning. And so what we do is we provide that analysis and that reasoning. And so it's very exciting for us as this has really laid the foundation for what today is around our 2025 college affordability profiles. So the Commission on College Affordability defined college affordability as the price required to attend higher education relative to family income. This is important. So we're not going to talk about just what the sticker says, the window sticker, so to speak. We look at it in terms of how it relates to family income. So another way to think about that is it's the relationship between the cost of students and families and the financial resources available to them. It considers family income, state support, and financial aid. So what we like to think about here is if it's done right, improving college affordability is a win-win-win for states, post-secondary institutions, and students. For institutions, greater affordability can boost enrollment and persistence toward graduation. It increases the likelihood of higher graduation rates. For students, it expands access to better college affordability and lays the foundation for long-term financial security and wealth building opportunity. And for states, it really is the engine of the economy. Post-secondary education is what we will build, continue to build our economy on. And I want to be clear. You'll notice I keep talking about post-secondary or college. Let's be really crystal clear here. At SREB, we talk about the fact that post-secondary opportunities, meaning anything past the 12th grade, is critical to success in the workforce. This focuses on 2-year and 4-year institutions. But when we are focused on this, it is about making sure that students have ample opportunity for them to pursue the career of their choice. But I think it's important to lay out that this is not an education issue. Affordability is really and truly an economic one. Making post-secondary education more affordable will create a space that aligns higher education to the demands of today and, more importantly, the prospective labor market. It closes those workforce gaps and it provides those greater opportunities for graduates to prosper. And when they prosper, we prosper as a region. So when we think about the compound challenges, we hear a lot. Any meeting we go to, I personally, a lot of my job is working with policymakers. And, we really subscribe to the idea throughout most of the 20th century that post-secondary education was a reliable pathway to the middle class and that a college degree symbolized the economic opportunity and upward mobility for generations of Americans. Well, we're now 25 years into the new millennium. We've had a little time to think about how we're thinking about this and look at the data. So what we have seen and what we hear a lot is that American higher ed certainly face a host of compounding and really interconnected challenges. We're seeing major shifts in demographics. We're seeing, unfortunately, declining public confidence in the value of post-secondary education. And I think one of the biggest drivers that we can't forget is how quickly the workforce evolves. In fact, again, I'm a science guy. The word evolve has different meanings for me. Evolve usually means something that happens pretty slowly. And actually, what we're seeing with workforce is it is actually moving pretty fast. Um, in fact, it really is reshaping a lot of the landscape, both in the economy, but also in how we're approaching post-secondary education. So the thing is that none of these things are isolated. That's why I started this off by talking about how important it is to understand that this is not easy. As I like to say a lot, education is not rocket science because rocket science is actually easier. We can predict a lot about chemical reactions, but when it comes to education issues, they can become very complex. And it's important to realize that it most of the time is actually a mosaic. It's not always a clear picture. So if we get too narrow, we lose the bigger picture. And therefore, we have to think about the pieces of the puzzle, but we also have to think about the overall goals. So for a second, let me just remind us, we're looking at this demographic cliff. It's a term that has been coined for a while now, and the trend reflects a predicted 13% nationwide decline in the number of high school graduates between 2025 and 2041. Um, let's face it, our boomers are moving into their retirement years or in their retirement years. Our birth rate has fallen. So we have fewer students in the K-12 pipeline. So it sort of makes sense. It's not that less kids are graduating because the K-12 schools are preventing it. It's actually because we have fewer people actually going into the pipeline. This is really important because one of the things that we will see over the next 5 years is for the first time in our nation's history, we will see in 2030 more non-working age individuals than we have working age. 52% of our population are actually going to be non-working age individuals. If you'd like to see more about that, that's actually in our SREB fact book on higher education. Um, and this has real implications for how colleges, universities, and credential granting institutions um, e- deal with their enrollment. And sometimes it does lead to things like campus closures. But the cliff doesn't just threaten that sustainability, it really does intensify that competition for sort of the traditional age student. So, in this environment, affordability becomes even more of an urgent issue because we have the traditional age students, we have adults who are trying to be upskilled and try to get back into the workforce at a different level. I mean, simply put, there's a reality that when we have a demographic decline such as this, making more college more affordable isn't just a good policy, it's actually a strategic imperative. We have to make sure that we do that so that every student that graduates and every student that goes to a credential granting institution has the opportunity to grow into a skilled and competitive workforce. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you can see this projection. You can see how steadily we're looking at this decline. It was 3.1% decrease by 2030, 3.4 decrease by 35, and a whopping 10.3 decrease by 2041. I've been in education a long time. I'm in my 30 something year. I'm getting to be that guy that's been around for a long time. And for years, I've seen people, they throw data up and they're like, this is an emergency. We have to act now. I don't like doing that. So when I do it, it's actually something we've got to think about. So this decline does put incredible pressures on institutions to adjust enrollment strategy and their offerings. But it also presents a challenge, but we like to try to be optimists at SREB. So we also like to think about this is also a significant opportunity at a significant time in our history. So we've seen kind of a decline in public confidence in higher ed. More Americans than ever reporting little to no confidence in colleges and universities. We think that's kind of driven by two big concerns: rising cost of college and a disappointing economic return for graduates. Loan debt has increased to really historic levels, and I do think that while it is a crisis of confidence, it's also about the realities of affordability and making that more clear. A lot of our institutions should be applauded for the fact that they are providing more and more financial literacy components to what happens when you apply for a loan. But the reality is that there's got to be more of a focus on that affordability, but also what that return on investment would be if they pursue various degrees or credentials. So we know that there is an existing gap in this prepared talent. According to Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce, 72% of all jobs will require some type of post-secondary credential by 2031. 72%. I mean, that's a vast number, especially when you consider that we have some of our states that aren't even attaining 60% graduation rates. But it makes for a really huge challenge because without us doing a better job with preparing this talent, we can't maintain this strong competitive workforce. Um, on top of that, when you look at the rise of AI and its advancements, we're actually seeing where a lot of jobs that we have traditionally had that may have been considered blue collar in the past are going to be replaced. We actually did a report in 2019 called Unprepared and Unaware. And in that, we talk about how artificial intelligence is starting to replace some of those key jobs. Now, the interesting thing is there are more jobs. It's not Rosie from the Jetsons taking over all the jobs. It's actually that those jobs are going away, but upskill jobs exist. What we have to embrace is the idea that if a high school diploma is a terminal degree, the economic prospects for that individual are terminal. They will not be able to be a part of this economy or of this workforce. So we've got to be able to provide better access to colleges. So let's think about our regional context very quickly. I think it's important to understand that when we look at our southern states, we are, first of all, the only region of the country who continues to grow. That's pretty dang important. Um, so, and the other part is our demographics really make us a microcosm of the whole United States. So, when we look at this, our post-secondary attainment as a region stands at 54.3%. But when you look at, I'm sorry, that's the national average. When you look at the regional average, though, it's just at 51%. And the majority of our SREB states fall below that national average. Only a few, like Virginia, Maryland, Florida, and North Carolina, are meeting or exceeding that benchmark. But here's the thing. That's not just a statistic. That's not just a data point. That's actually, it's the bat signal. It's saying, hey, we've got something we've got to really focus on here. Because if 72% of jobs are going to need some type of post-secondary credential, how in the world can we think about having just a slightly over 50% graduation rate, being able to meet the needs of our workforce? Um, you know, when we think about a lot of our states, they have work to do. And while we want to make sure that we provide them supports, a lot of times it does come down to the economics and the accessibility that the students have to access to the various institutions. Oops. Um, so when we look at this next slide and we think about the workforce needs that are projected to 2031, the graph shows the percentage of jobs in each state that will require some form of post-secondary education by 2031. I mean, it's pretty daunting. So it stands out pretty clearly that every SREB state, the projected demands for workers with post-secondary credentials is higher than the current attainment value. Now, obviously, there's more detail when you dig into that than just the top level, but it's really important to think about we've got to up these numbers. Well, to up the numbers, we also have to up the accessibility and affordability. So when you look at the percentage or the projected percentage of jobs with post-secondary, Virginia has 71% of jobs that will require post-secondary education. Uh, but yet they're not quite meeting that threshold at 59%. We have other states that have even larger gaps. So again, it's not just the fact that college or post-secondary is hard. It's also really boils down to that accessibility component. So national trends in high school graduations show a clear decline. We're seeing in the other regions of the country where they are seeing those declines pretty significantly. However, as I mentioned earlier, SREB, the SREB region, we actually saw a 3% increase in the number of graduates. We actually are seeing an increase in the population of our states, which is a little bit different. So there are still those significant variations at the state level. Um, States like Mississippi and Tennessee, for instance, are projected to see notable increases in high school graduates at 16% and 15%, respectively. This means that in contrast to that national trend, many southern states will face a growing demand for post-secondary in the years to come. So, where the number of high school graduates is projected to increase, we're going to have a different set of challenges. We can't just have them graduate high school and say good luck. Those days of a high school diploma being a rite of passage or being a goal, um, that can't be the end point. We've got to make that just a point on the journey. If not, and if we don't find ways to remove those financial barriers and scale up how we support students, and really strengthen pathways between high school and post-secondary and into the workforce, we're going to see a decline that continues. So that investment is going to be really, really critical. We do have states where we see the graduation rates decline, and we're seeing where they actually are having more competition for this shrinking pool of students. But then on the flip side of that, you also see where addressing that affordability might be framed more around recruitment and retention to make sure that they are still supporting all the students that are in state so that they don't lose those students going out of state. So it's a regional concern. The national trends, obviously, we always want to look at, but especially for us as an education compact, we want to understand that college affordability looks like. We need to understand what it looks like. It is a national issue. College affordability is an issue no matter what part of the country you live in or where you visit. But we've sort of got to start to tackle that as a regional and certainly a state level nuance. So what that means is our states may face different pressures and opportunities than others across the country. It means that we have to have a particular focus here in the South that supports the changing demographics and actually increases where a lot of the other regions will not have that. So for us, this means that now we have to start preparing to meet that future demand so that growth in the number of graduates becomes an opportunity to expand access rather than a missed opportunity due to financial barriers. So, with that in mind, I've done a lot of talking, frankly, a lot more than I probably should have. Now, I want to introduce you to the star of the show here. MJ Kim has been working at SREB for a little while now, and she is really the driving force behind pulling all of this data together and pulling together a tool that I believe gives a lot of great information. And we look forward to hearing from her. MJ is going to share the work that she's done and the work that SREB has continued to do over the years. So, MJ, take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. In this year's SREB College Affordability Profiles, we examined data from the 2021 and 2022 academic year of student financial aid and net price data that were available. Generally speaking, SREB region shows mixed progress in college affordability with some improvements in overall metrics, but persistent challenges for lower income students. Now let's take a closer look at the family income needed to attend public four-year Type 1 institutions, which are primarily research universities. They are four-year institutions that award at least 30 doctoral degrees in 5 different areas. These institutions often carry a high reputation, but also a high price tag. In the SREB states, the average percentage of a family's income required to cover tuition at these institutions was 27% in the 2021-2022 academic year. And this marks a slight improvement from the past, from 31%, suggesting that at the regional level, we are seeing some modest progress in terms of affordability. However, While this improvement is positive, the financial burden for many families remain substantial. So the affordability gap, however, is not uniform across all SREB states. For some, the burden is particularly heavy. For example, Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Louisiana, and South Carolina, families are facing the highest income burdens with anywhere from 32% to 41% of their income going toward tuition. On the other hand, there are a few states that stand out for having lower financial burdens, such as Florida. Let's shift our focus to public four-year Type 2 institutions, which are primarily open access or widely accessible four-year institutions. In the 21-22 academic year, families in SREB states needed to dedicate about 25% of their income on average to attend one of these institutions. That's again a slight but meaningful improvement from 29% in the past. Encouragingly, most SREB states experienced a decrease in the share of family income required between these years. And this signals that overall, there have been modest improvements in affordability at these institutions. Turning now to public two-year institutions, we continue to see encouraging signs of improved affordability across the SREB region. In 21-22, the average percentage of family income needed to attend a public two-year institution was 14%. Again, a modest but important improvement from 17% in the past. This decline suggests that many states have taken meaningful steps to make these institutions more accessible to students and families. One standout is South Carolina, where families needed just 11% of their income to attend two-year institutions, down from 15% just a few years earlier. This kind of progress, we think, is especially significant in a region where two-year institutions serve as a primary access point to higher education for many students, particularly those from low-income and rural communities. Let's now look at public technical institutions, which play a crucial role in preparing students for in-demand careers in the trades and technical fields. In 21-22, families in SREB states needed to dedicate an average of 15% of their income to attend these institutions. This again reflects a modest improvement from 18% in past, suggesting progress toward making technical education more affordable. Georgia stands out with the lowest percentage in 21-22 academic year at 12%, even though this reflects a slight increase from 10% in the past. On the other hand, Tennessee had one of the higher income burden at 17%, but this still marks a notable improvement from the 24% families needed just a few years earlier. So overall, the trend across SREB region, I can say, is positive, with most states either reducing or maintaining the share of income needed to attend technical institutions. Now, let's examine the distribution of average family income among post-secondary students across SREB states. Understanding income level is key to interpreting affordability data because the same tuition costs can have very different impacts depending on a family's financial resources. And in the SREB region, students from the families that made $110,000 or more saw the most substantial increase from 2018 to 2022. The 14 percentage point gap in 2022 between the highest and lowest income groups indicates growing economic disparities among post-secondary students in SREB region. A similar pattern was seen in states like Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, South Carolina, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Students from families that made $110,000 or more saw the most significant increase in states like Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Maryland, North Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. The percentage point gap as big as 38% between highest and lowest income groups in 2022 indicates, again, for growing economic disparities among post-secondary students in the states. Now let's look at the case for the lowest income families. The percentage of income required for median tuition and fees was higher at four-year institutions than two-year and technical institutions in 21-22 academic year for families in the SREB region making less than $30,000 a year. This was the case for all of our SREB states. And so the percentage of an income required for median and tuition and fees at two-year and technical increased for all SREB states except Virginia. And families earning less than $30,000 needed 15% to 30% of their income to cover median tuition and fees at these institutions, and 19 to 18% of their income to attend technical institution. However, overall, two-year and technical institutions demonstrated a lot more moderate increase than that of public four-year institutions. SREB region maintains higher aid levels than national averages in most categories, particularly in merit-only and need-based aid, indicating strong overall financial support for students compared to national standards. The South may have developed a reputation for lacking need-based aid, but our analysis this year tells a different story. In 21-22, Southern states offered 25.8% more need-based aid than the national average. Even more impressive is compared to the past, the SREB region increased need-based aid by 25%, signaling a strong commitment to supporting lower income students. Does this mean that SREB states reduced merit-based aid? Not at all. In fact, the region provided 161% more merit-based than the national average in 21-22 academic year. While need-based aid grew significantly, merit-based aid also increased. So what does this expansion of high financial aid mean? I think the SREB region is working to kind of balance the affordability and academic excellence by growing need-based aid while continuing to invest heavily in merit-based aid. Our states are ensuring that both financially disadvantaged and high-achieving students receive the support they need to pursue post-secondary education. And this is one of the indicators that made me feel hopeful about the direction that our region is heading. Now let's turn to student borrowing at public institution. And it is an important lens for understanding how families are managing college costs beyond what income can cover. Looking at data from 2015-16 to 2020-21 academic years, both the SREB average and the US average for student borrowing at public four-year type 1 and type 2 institutions have declined. That's a promising sign, pointing to some progress in addressing college affordability. Factors like, there can be anything, it can be anything, but factors like increased financial aid or slower growth in tuition and fees may be playing a role here. That said, it's worth noting that the national average has dropped at a slightly faster rate than that of the SRB average. This suggests that while we are seeing movement in the right direction, our region isn't reducing student debt as quickly as the rest of the country. Now let's turn our attention to student borrowing trends at public two-year and technical institutions, often considered the most accessible and affordable entry point to higher education. Unfortunately, the data shows that both the SREB average and the US average for student borrowing at these institutions increased over the years. While the SREB average has consistently remained lower than the national average, the fact that both have trended upward over time is concerning, and the gap between the two averages continues to persist. This upward trend suggests that students at two-year institutions are increasingly relying on loans to cover their costs. And also, this is particularly troubling because these institutions are, again, often a critical access point for low and moderate income students. I want to shift gears and talk about the operational funds available per full-time equivalent student. This includes both what students and families pay through tuition and fees and what states contribute through appropriations. In the SREB region's public four-year institutions, operational funds per FTE consisted mostly of tuition and fees for SREB region's public four-year institutions in 21-22 academic year. While tuition and fees increased by about 74% since 2008 and 9 academic year, state appropriation showed a modest growth about 7.5%. Even though we've seen some recovery in state funding in recent years, it hasn't been enough to keep pace with the rapid growth in tuition and fees. And what this really means for our students is higher out-of-pocket costs and greater financial pressure to attend four-year institutions. And when we look at the case of two-year institutions in the SREB region and examine how they're funded, in contrast to four-year institutions, operational funds per full-time equivalent students at two-year institutions came primarily from state and local appropriations rather than tuition and fees. And throughout the period, state and local appropriations, although somewhat volatile, consistently remained higher than tuition and fees. So by 21-22 academic year, appropriations exceeded tuition by nearly $1,735 per FTE. That's a strong signal of more robust state support for two-year colleges, which has helped maintain better affordability over time. What's also important to note is that even during years when appropriations dipped, like in 2019 and 20 academic year, tuition and fees did not spike dramatically. This tells us that steady state support can act as a cushion, shielding students from abrupt increases in college costs. So Stephen, please wrap up and share the key takeaways.
Okay. Sorry. We had a little bit of a weird glitch there where I could not unmute myself. So, key takeaway. So, all that information that MJ just went over, again, are actually located in these reports. So, as we get ready to wrap up, I'd like to just kind of take a moment and reflect on a couple of the things. You know, are we saying that we've solved the affordability crisis in higher ed? No. In no way have we done that. But we also don't think it's helpful to let the conversation around those higher ed costs become so overwhelmingly negative that it discourages students from even considering going to a post-secondary institution. By 2031, about 64% of the jobs in the region will require post-secondary, and we know that that number is just going to continue to grow as we get closer to 2041. You know, as of 2022, we only have about a little more than half of working age adults that have a post-secondary credential. Progress in college affordability doesn't happen overnight. We need to be really crystal clear about that. But as we look at the data, we saw real signs of momentum. There are things that our states should be very happy about and proud of. There are things that our institutions should be very, very proud of. Families are spending slightly less of their income to attend public institutions. Borrowing is down at our four-year institutions, and two-year colleges and state and local appropriations continue to play a major role in keeping those costs stable, even through economic downturns. We've increased the investment in needs-based aid without losing the region's strong commitment to merit-based programs. And there are meaningful shifts that show our states are making strategic decisions to expand access and reduce those financial barriers. So while the challenges are far from over, the progress we've seen really gives us hope. We believe that every step forward, no matter how small, makes a difference for each of the students that we serve. We're happy to share with you related resources as we get ready to wrap up. Just so you know, we've created 16 individual state college affordability profiles. Each one offers a detailed look at the data and trends for a specific state. They're great tools for policymakers, educators, advocates who may want to have a better understanding of what affordability at the state level looks like. We've also published a blog post that highlights big picture findings. And we've been pretty excited about some of the media coverage we've gotten. Been in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, WSB Radio in Georgia, and the Louisiana Times, and in diverse issues in higher education. We're grateful to these outlets. We can't thank you enough for allowing us to be a part of that. We're also going to do something new this year. We're going to have a series of short 2-minute video clips that summarize key findings for each state. These will be released starting in early May and are designed to be easily shareable for use in presentations or social media or community conversations. All of these resources are going to be available on our website. We do not have a paywall. You can actually access all of that easily, and we encourage you to do so. And we hope that you'll share them pretty widely. So, with that, we would love to take a moment. It is 10:44 to see if we have questions that maybe you have of us. We see a couple of questions here in our slides. So, MJ, maybe you and I could take a look at some of these. Um, we have a question from Jasmine Zhang about if state appropriations continue to grow for two-year colleges, why do students take out more loans to attend two-year colleges? Um, I think that's a great question. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to have an answer for that. MJ, do you have any light that you'd like to shed on that?
That's a really complicated question, like we share throughout the presentation. But I do think one of the way we measure the affordability, we need to do a better job of capturing all the extra costs or the living expenses, the inflation rate, and so on and so forth. So I think that's one of the reasons why um, you might be asking that question. And I totally agree with that point.
Well, and I would also say this is where it becomes really important that we know when students go to those institutions, are do they know what they're getting into with their chosen major in terms of the economic outlook? More states, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama have been releasing what we call the 3H list, high demand, high skill, high wage lists of what those careers are in those states. And I would say one of the things that's really important at 2 and 4 year, but probably even more urgent at 2 year, is that students are counseled about what those high need careers are or high demand careers are so they can make better choices uh, to make sure that they're going to be employed. And if they do have to take loans, that they're able to actually repay those in timely manners. Rob Resignio also asked a question about is the impact of common market reviewed and how that contributes to our family's ability to afford post-secondary education. MJ?
Not for this particular profile, but we do think there are implications that we can make in relation to common market. So maybe that's one of the future research questions that I'd like to tackle. So thank you for pointing that out.
And we have a question from Faye. She's raised her hands. Faye, we invite you to unmute and ask your question. Well, we either lost Faye or we had a technical glitch where hopefully we have opened it up so people can speak. But Faye, if you can't do that, maybe send your question through the chat. All right. Um, well, we're not seeing any more questions at the moment. Beth just reminded me that we also have related resources around our academic common market. This is including an increase in students who are from lower income areas, being able to provide opportunities for them to go pursue majors that are not currently located in their home state, which is also another way to reduce barriers. If you're not familiar with the academic common market and you have students who are going to be graduating soon, you might want to think about that. Okay. Don't see any more questions coming in. And I have been told that if you unmute yourself, you are able to speak. So I'll give it just a couple more seconds here. Okay. Well, again, I just want to say thank you for being here. Our contact information is on this final slide. Feel free to reach out to any of us to be able to answer questions. Um, this is work that we have historically done, and I want to be able to give a quick shout out also to Susan Lounsbury, who has been leading our data exchange and our fact book and our data work at SREB for quite some time now. And so she has been with us. And so I want to publicly say thank you to Susan for her work on this. But in particular, I want to say to MJ, great job. MJ has been with us a little over a year, little over 1 year. And her work on this has been stellar. So, MJ, I want to say to you, thank you for getting into this and for the work that has been done historically, but now has a little bit more of a twist to it. And I think you did a great job of showing the complexities and being able to show places where we can be proud and places we need to improve. So, MJ, thank you for all of your work on this. And we thank all of you for being here. We thank you for being a part of this webinar. Please feel free to reach out to any of our staff, and we are more than happy to be able to provide you any help or aid that we can. Thank you. We hope you have a great rest of your day. If anyone needs help from the Southern Regional Education Board, always encourage you to reach out. We are happy to do that. It is literally what we were created to do. So have a great day.